So Kadir, the class is yours. You know what to do. We're all your students today. So
okay,
take it away.
Thank you, Raul. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you well.
Okay, very good. Okay, it's a pleasure to be here in this class. Thank you, Raul, in advance for this invitation. So what I'm going to show you today is something that I have been implementing in my school, okay? But first, doing this one, I would like to present myself because I think it's very important that you know that I am doing something a little bit different in my school, but maybe this one is changing a little bit my students' perception, my students' reading skills, and in some cases, this one is changing the students' social competence, right? So as Raul mentioned before, my name is Kadir Alexander Cardona-Pabón. I am an English teacher. I have been teaching for almost 10 years. I have been teaching just in public schools. To be honest, I don't have any experience in private schools, but I would like to have it in some time. Okay. What else about me? Besides being teacher, I have other no academic activities. For example, I am a musician. I used to have a metal band. So imagine, but I must get up because of my current job. Okay, so at the moment I don't have the time enough for dedicate to this activity. But I practice in the afternoons. I play guitar. I play my bass guitar and something like that. What else about me? I love practicing archery. And for example, I have a small family, but this small family spends most of my time. Okay, this means that basically my life is based on some academic activities, including research, because this one is that I'm going to call you today, and I do other no academic activities. Okay. So what I'm going to show you today is a method that I have been implementing in my school. Probably we have been implementing this one for almost 1 year and a half. This method is called reciprocal teaching. Okay. This method is proposed in the beginnings by Palinsar and Brown. This method consists of that a small group of students or some groups of students reading in silence. It means that they must read in their mind, okay? As we know in Spanish, leer mentalmente, okay? This method consists of that the students read in small groups, as I mentioned before, that the students read by sections. By section, the students put in practice some reading strategies and play and perform some roles and responsibilities. Okay, so what is the purpose of this method? The purpose of this method is maybe or basically to improve the reading skills, the students' reading skills. Okay, so I'm going to ask you something. Have you ever heard about this method before? Yes or not? Reciprocal teaching. I'm going to write in the chat.
Could I tell you, teacher?
How?
Could I tell you, teacher?
I'm going to write there.
Well, you should tell him he's the teacher. He's running the show today.
Yes,
so
at the moment.
He's the teacher. I'm just another student in this class. This is Kadir's class.
This one. Have you ever heard about this term, reciprocal teaching, maybe in Spanish or in English?
I have never heard about it.
Who, maybe? No one's. Okay, so let's continue. So maybe today is your first time listen to this term, okay? So remember that this term is proposed by Palinzer and Brown. Remember that this term is a method that consists that a small group or some small group of students reading silence, read by sections, put in practice on strategies, reading strategies, and play and perform some roles and responsibilities, okay? With basically a purpose to improve the students' reading skills, okay? So, as I mentioned before, this method is based on some reading strategies, okay? According to Palinzer and Brown, there are four strategies, okay? But other authors have included other ones, okay? So basically, I'm going to talk about just one different one, okay? And I'm going to talk about the strategies that are proposed by Palinzer and Brown, okay? There are four. Okay. According to Palinzer and Brown, they are, for example, questioning. The other one is predicting, clarifying, and summarizing. Okay. But for example, in my case, in my school, I am applying another one that is called visualizing. Okay. So as I mentioned before continuing talking about this strategy, as I mentioned before, remember that I said that this method consists of the students read in silence and read by section. Okay, so what does it mean by sections? Okay, when we put in practice this method, for example, I took a reading, or I took a text and I divided by section. How did I do? Okay, for example, if the text has, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs, I divided this one by section. One paragraph is one section, 2 paragraphs, 2 sections, okay? But what is the purpose to divide this one by section? The purpose to divide this one by section is that in each section, we are going to apply maybe one strategy, maybe 2 strategies, or maybe all the strategies, okay? It depends on the text and it depends on the paragraph, okay? So let's start with the strategies. The first strategy is called predicting, okay? With this strategy, maybe this one is the first strategy that we apply when we read, okay? So for example, I give the students a text, okay? The text is divided by, for example, sections. For example, I'm going to show you one text. Can you see it? So the text, for example, has 1, 2, 3, and 4 paragraphs. So for example, this is one section, 2 sections, 3 sections, 4 sections, okay? So in the first strategy that we are going to apply is called predicting or prediction, okay? So in this one, the students take the text and for example, read the first sentence of the paragraph, read the title, read the subtitles, read maybe the whole paragraph. But what is the purpose to do that? The purpose to do that is that the students do an image in their mind about what is going to happen next. What is the text about? Okay, what is the purpose, for example, the author? Okay, so with all of those aspects, the students do an image in their mind about what is the purpose of the test or what is the text about. This is the main purpose of this one. So in this case, the students must infer, must predict, okay, according to all of those aspects, okay? And something that I forgot in this part, if the text has an images, or boxes or charts, okay? Maybe these one are going to help in order to do predictions, right? So the second strategy is called questioning, okay? So with this strategy, the students stop, okay, while they are reading, for example, in the second section, they stop in order to ask themselves about the text, okay? So for example, they ask what is going to happen next, okay? For example, my students at the beginning ask questions so explicit, okay? So for example, how old is the young man, or what is the color of the pet? Probably these students find immediately the answers, okay? But what I thought then was that the students may implicit questions, okay? So question, for example, that they couldn't find immediately in the text. For example, why the author write this one, or for example, what is the why does the main character is sick or is ill, or why this one, why this person killed the other one. Probably in this case, this kind of questions they couldn't find immediately. They must think a little bit in order to find an answer. Okay. So, for example, the first strategy, predicting and questioning probably are so correlated. Okay, so correlated because these two strategies help the students, the students, sorry, to do an image about what is the text about. Okay, so other strategy that we put in practice is called clarifying. Okay, so this strategy uh, consists in that the students stop in order to clarify, in order to solve doubt, in order to clarify, for example, vocabulary. So, for example, the among them ask about the unknown vocabulary. So, for example, hey, bro, I don't know the meaning of this word. What do you think is the meaning? Oh, maybe this one means, for example, table. Oh, maybe this one is no tablet, no es tabla. This one is mesa. Okay. Oh, hey, bro, what is the meaning of this expression? Piece of cake, for example. This one, I don't think this one means a pedazo de pastel. Okay. If the students couldn't clarify this doubt, probably they are going to ask, or they were going to ask the teacher. Okay, so teacher, we don't know what is the meaning of this one. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to help them in order to clarify what is the meaning, maybe of a word, maybe of a expression, idioms, or whatever, right? Then I'm going to call out a little bit about this strategy, because this one we did something different. Okay, and the other strategy that is proposed by Lindsay and Brown is summarizing. Okay, maybe this strategy was the difficult one. Okay, because the students weren't accustomed to summarize. They take the text as they are and they write similar to the text. Okay, so what I told them was that take the main ideas of each paragraph, okay, and the main idea of the paragraph, but that they write by their own words, okay. They, for example, take a word and they probably look for a synonym, okay, in order that the text where it wasn't the same one, for example, okay. So at the end, for example, in a text, For example, the text has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs. So at the end, all the groups must have 5 main ideas. Okay, one by paragraph. One by paragraph. Pay attention to that, one by paragraph. So they took all of these sentences, all of those main ideas, and they connect by means of linkers or connectors, okay? Or something that we call that is discourse markers, okay? So at the end, they had a coherent small paragraph, okay? So with all of those sentences, they connect and they became to a coherent paragraph, okay? So these one are the 4 strategies that are proposed by Palinser and Brown. All of these strategies are putting in practice while they are reading, okay? So they must stop in the reading in order to apply all of these strategies. For example, at the beginning of the text, okay, they put in practice the first strategy, predicting, right? So they read the title, subtitle, first sentence, maybe the first paragraph, look for the images, okay? So for example, in this one, put in practice the first strategy and maybe the second one, questioning, okay? Because they probably ask themselves about some questions related to the text. Maybe in this first or second paragraph, they put in practice all of those the four strategies, predicting, clarifying, summarizing, and questioning. Okay, so in order to give an idea about what is going to happen next or what is the text about. And finally, taking into account all of those information, that this information was reported in a format. I'm going to show you. Let me show you the format. I'm going to share you the format. Okay. In a minute. Can you see it? Pueden verlo.
Yes, we can.
Okay, let me a minute to organize this one. This. Okay. So, for example, all of this information were reported in this format. Okay, so in the strategy of predicting the report, for example, all of this information, for example, I think that the next paragraph is about that. I bet the next paragraph is about that. I believe, I consider, I predict that. Okay, something like that. So all of the students report everything in this format. This one was in paper, okay, physically. Right. Keeping all of this information, we put in practice our last strategy that is called visualizing. Okay, the purpose of visualizing is that the students be be so creative. Okay, the idea of this strategy is that the student report everything that they understood about the text. Okay, so for example, they took the summary, the final summary. According to the summary, they represent by means of what? For example, a graphic organizer. Okay, for example, in our case, my students did some mental maps. Okay, my maps. My students, for example, did some digital cartoons, right? But this strategy is for me is the best one because in this way the students can be the most creative person ever. Okay, so with this strategy, the students, for example, can represent what they understood by means of, for example, a play, a hashtag, a video, maybe some graphic organizer, maybe, for example, in our case, cartoons or something like that. Okay. So, okay, I'm going to. Okay. So far we have seen what I have implemented in my school. Okay, this is the traditional way. Okay, according to Palinzer and Brown. Okay. So in my school or with my class, I'm implementing this method, that is reciprocal teaching. Okay, so I put in practice some strategy, predictive questioning, clarifying, summarizing. Okay, but the students must play in this activity some roles in some responsibility. Okay. What were the roles and responsibility for each student? The roles, responsibilities was also something similar to the strategies. But for example, you can change if you want. Okay, I choose this one. I choose the role of predictor, the role of questioner, the role of clarifier, and the role of summarizer. Okay, so all of the students must have to play a role and must play some responsibility. So for example, the role of the predictor is to guide the prediction time. Okay, for example, make prediction, drop inference before and during reading. For example, the role of the questioner is to guide the questioning time. Okay, for example, pause, answer questions, promote interaction with peers. The role of clarifier is to guide the clarifying time using straight to straight meaning to read, decode, and something like that. And the role of the summarizer is to guide the summarizing time. Okay, we have a slogan. Okay, even they have a role, all of those must play or must perform all the responsibilities. For example, it might not say, my role is to guide. However, my classmate responsibilities are also my responsibilities. Okay? So this means that if I am the predictor, I am going to guide the predicting time or the prediction time. Okay? I am not going to do just my prediction, or you are going to ask and that's all. No. In this case, I am going to guide, but all of us are going to do prediction, do questions, clarify meanings, word, unknown vocabulary, and something like that. All of us or all of them must play with this role and responsibilities. Okay? Are you with me so far?
Yeah,
No?
we're following good. There are a couple of questions in the chat. Do you have a chance
Okay.
to look at them?
Okay, let me see, Raul, because I'm accustomed to play with this one. Okay. Okay, let me see. Okay. Okay, from what grade level can this method be used? Okay, this method you can use maybe with secondary students. Okay, the important is that the students have, for example, some reading abilities, okay, or reading competence, right? So, for example, maybe this one can work with the student in 6th, 5th grade, 4th grade, okay? But probably you are going to work better with higher students, okay? But the most important here is that the students have some reading competence, okay? In visualizing, they report just what they understood based on the text, or could it be related what they understood in relationship with a specific topic? No, in this case, they reported what they understood, okay, according to the text. Okay, so in some minutes, I'm going to show you what they reported using some mind maps and using some cartoons. Okay, so Another question? No? Okay, so let's continue. So, sorry. So according to Palin and Brown, so this method is applied in a physical specs, okay? In this method, we use paper books, okay? But in my case, I put in practice, so I move this theory to another different specs, okay? So I did this activity using these digital devices, okay? So normally the class, or normally I created a class in Google Classroom. Okay, so in this classroom, I add all my students. Okay, so in this Google Classroom, I give the instructions or something like that. Besides, we created a group in Hangouts. Okay, in this group, we did something similar to the Google Classroom platform. Okay, so in this Hangouts app, I share the reading the text, I give the instructions. In this text, for example, we shared all the unknown vocabulary. Okay, we shared all the activities that they carry out. So let me show you again. Let me show you where is this one. Okay, here. Okay. So this is the group that I created in Google Classroom. So in this one, we add all the students. So I carry out this activity or this method in the beginning with my 8 students. At the moment, they are in 10th grade. Okay. So for example, this one is something that I share with them. So for example, you can see some of the activities that they carry out. Okay. This one were in paper. For example, these one are the vocabulary that they share to all the group. So this vocabulary this vocabulary help one group, but even help all the group. Okay, because with this application, all of us can see the vocabulary that they look for. Okay, or that they didn't know. And you can see. Okay, so okay, for example, these are the texts that I share with them. Always I share with an image, first the image. With this image, they do the first prediction, then the first questions, okay? I divided the text by sections, okay? But I share them one by one. So for example, I share the first one first, the second one then, and so on, okay? So they read this part, for example, and according to this one, they put in practice all the strategies, okay? So I gave them maybe 3 minutes in order to read, in order to understand, and in order to put in practice the first strategies, okay? And then we share together, okay? At the beginning were all the group, and then they did it in the small groups. So in my class, I formed 5 groups or 4, 5, 6, no, 6 groups or 4 students, okay? In order that all of those play different roles and responsibilities. So these are the formats, yes. Okay, these are the results that they carry out. For example, this one are some of the cartoons that they carry out in an application that is called Comica. Okay, this one is so simple to use. The students scoffed immediately. So for them, this one was a piece of cake, as I said before. So for example, in this text, maybe the text has 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs. So for example, this is the main idea of the first paragraph. Maybe this one is the main idea of the second, and so on. So for example, this one, okay. This one, they report all of those that they have understood. And we did some activities. They did some mind maps, okay. So for example, they are some of those. Maybe in this one you can find the main idea of the text. Okay, probably you are going to find some mistakes, some grammar mistakes, and something like that. Okay, so as you can see, this method normally is carried out in a physical space using vectors, using what? Everything that you can find in a class. But obviously, in my case, we carry out this one in a physical space, but we carry out this one using these devices. Okay? The devices that we use was the student devices, so in most of the cases, and in some cases we use the institutional devices. Okay. For doing this one, we have to pass for a lot of problems because, as you know, this is a public school. We don't have everything that a private school has. Okay, so for example, we pass with the internet. For example, the students that at the moment don't have internet, so I have to share our own internet to them. So I have to take an old, what is the name of this one? An old, I forgot. What is the name of this one, Raúl? Router, okay? And I have to modify many things in order to share the internet to these students. Okay, so for do that, as Raúl mentioned before, I have to look for a problem. I have to investigate. I have to do research. Okay, I have to take this theory and implement in my context. Okay, remember that all contexts are different. Maybe what I work with me probably isn't going to work in another different context. Okay, so it depends. For that reason, you must be creative in order to implement this one. But something that I'm going to tell you, this one works. Okay, this one works. For example, in my case, this one works immediately. A bit, but this one works. If you carry out this one very often no. If you carry out this one often, probably you are going to find excellent results. Okay. My recommendation is don't do this one very often because probably the students are going to get bored. Okay, maybe 1 by 2 weeks or 1 by week, okay, in 1 hour of the class. This one is a hard to do it because you must implement all these strategies with them. Okay, so you must be with them as a guide. Okay, so most of the work at the beginning probably you do together. But then with the experience, they are going to do alone. For example, this method is going to work just not just in English. Probably this one is going to work in other subjects, Spanish, religion, ethics, whatever, physical education. Okay, so if you want, you can look for information about this one on internet, and you are going to find a lot of information about reciprocal teaching. Maybe, probably, maybe not. You are going to find information about digital reciprocal teaching. That is what I am implementing in my school. Okay, maybe the work that I am doing right now, maybe it can be some of the first one. Okay, but with this work, probably you can do something different. Okay, this is maybe the door for you that are going to be teachers. Okay, you are going to be our colleagues. Okay, so this method, I don't know. As Raúl said, usted que está engomado. Okay, yes, I am engomado at the moment with this topic because I saw that this one works and works in the best way. Okay, so Raúl, if you have question or some of you have question, go ahead and thank you.
No, thank you, Kadir. Well, and first of all, I think it's important. I want to really point out for a moment that how important it is. I mean, I like what you said at the end, and I think it's important for the students to notice that. Um, there are so many topics, and especially because I mean, the students will start, all the students will start thinking of their senior thesis next semester. There are so many topics that you can choose to develop as part of your research and your practice, or part of your praxis, if you will, in your classroom. What matters is not the topic you choose, but that you really engage with it. I mean, you want to develop, you want to get in a topic that gets you so excited about it that you can talk about it, and you can share what you did, and you can look at what Kadir is doing with his students. These are students in a public school, and students who are very good, and they're working with very simple tools, because that's another thing. And in some these methods, you should be able to implement them with very simple tools. Sometimes I worry too much about implementations that require a lot of hardware or a lot of software or a lot of stuff. Like, no, let's keep it simple, and let's try this in a more minimalist way. I mean, when it comes to doing stuff in class, I believe in a minimalist approach. Just when you do this with just what you have in front of you, and what you have in front of you is your students, and what you have in front of you is texts. What you have in front of you is a notebook, and what you have in front of you is a smartphone. Can you do all that just with a phone, just with the notebook? And then if you can't do that with that, then you can start scaling it up as more resources arrive. But the idea that you need to have a lot of resources to get stuff done, that's one of the things that sometimes it's not going to happen. So what happens when you have very few resources? Then you have to be very resourceful. And I think the example, what you saw today, and I wanted you to see this directly from and listen to Kadir's story, because again, this is what's happening in a school. This is not something that is so ethereal that it's happening in other parts of the world. No, it's just happening just an hour from here in the negative. And it's happening with school in a school with students, and this is the reality you're going to face. So now we have some questions. And Angela, we have a question about strategies you use to improve speaking or listening. Wanna elaborate more on your question? Angela?
Sorry, teacher, can you repeat?
Yeah, you tell us, maybe, can you elaborate on the question so we can actually answer the question properly?
Okay. Okay. I mean, we know that this reciprocal teaching is based on the reading skills, but I don't know. I just wanted to ask to teacher Kadir, what other strategies like this reciprocal teaching does he use to improve like the listening or the speaking? Yeah.
Kadir?
Okay, so basically this is a reading method, but obviously all of those students must speak and must listen. Okay, so some of the strategy is that I give them some, or I show them some possible questions that they can do when they speak, right? So because my group, the level proficiency is not the best one. Okay, you imagine this is a public school where the students live in a context so different to a city. Okay, they live in the country, in the countryside. Sorry. Okay, for example, they are the housekeeper's son or the housekeeper's children, or all of these richest people of your neighborhood. Okay, so maybe the only thing they are going to listen in English is your voices. Okay, okay. In my case, when I came to my school, maybe 5 years, 6 years ago, okay, they didn't like the English subject, to be honest. They didn't like it. Okay. But with the time, they learned to love this subject. But this one maybe is step by step. Okay. So probably I took these students in the maybe in the 8th grade. At the moment this is my 2nd year with them. Okay, so in this case I implementing many things with them, right, with these students. But in this case, maybe the strategy that I applied was reading strategies. Maybe in some cases some listening strategies, okay, but not enough. Okay, I wanted to be so honest because I think that step by step, probably they are going to do something better in the future. Okay, so we started with this one, with reading. Maybe for this year, I'm going to research, I'm going to look for something that helps the student in order to listen better, to speak better, or something like that. So that's the reason. The reason is that you all the time look for an answer, okay? And in order to find this answer is doing research, okay? This is what we as a teacher must do, okay? Just teach, okay? This is the idea, right?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the last part because I don't know what happened with my internet or if I only one, but I don't listen this part. So.
Yeah, we lost you for a second.
Okay, so the idea is that you don't take everything that the government give us, okay? The idea is that you look for another answers in order to solve many problems that we can find in our schools. Specifically in our public school, because in our public school we can find a lot of problems that they have, even in English and Spanish, in everything, whatever. Okay, so the idea is that you research, okay, in order to solve many things that you can find in your context. Okay.
Any other questions for Kadir related to the topic of today? And again, yes, I would say, for example, even though the idea of reciprocal teaching has to do with reading, you can still integrate it with listening. I mean, you can still have the students, for example, work with an audiobook or work with a like segment and have them listen to it in little parts and then talk about it. And always remember one of the, and this kind of foreshadows the work we do next week. Remember what we said in the previous class. Don't think of the skills as things that you can isolate all the time, but things that are integrated. So even in reciprocal teaching, there is a sense that you can bring together all of the four skills in the act of reading. I mean, as you read and you read silently, I mean, sometimes you have to take notes to prepare for the conversation. That's called writing. And then in the conversation only works if at the same if all the participants are ready to talk and to express ideas, but also listen carefully in order to enrich the conversation. So that, again, it's a reading comprehension activity, but reading comprehension, it doesn't mean that you just doing reading. It means that you're doing reading, and comprehension requires integration with the other skills, which is kind of like what we're talking about as we analyze the notion of communicative competence. So can I use reciprocal teaching with audio material? Yeah. Can I use reciprocal teaching, for example, to watch a video? Yes. And it's that simple. You start watching, you can say, what's the first 5 minutes, what's the second 5 minutes, what the first minute, and then discuss, and you can do the same. So even if it's a reading comprehension activity that, as Kadir pointed out, it was initially designed for a physical space, or at least it was initially conceived. They were not necessarily thinking about instant messaging, or they were necessarily thinking about the possibility of using breakout rooms in Zoom or stuff like that. The way it's conceived and the kinds of strategies, the metacognitive strategies that we use in the process of comprehending, can be easily adaptable to very different kinds of text. So it can be adapted to video clips, you can adapt it to music videos, you can adapt it to songs, you can adapt it to. So the possibilities, once you start becoming creative, are endless. I remember when we first started working on Cardona research, we realized there is I mean, even in discussions of digital reading, there are some elements of digital reading that are still under consideration. And this particular strategy is one that still needs more, let's say, more thinking through in order to take it to digital realms. And that's what Kadir is exactly doing. Any other questions? Any other ideas you want to ask Kadir about the what he did with the students?
Teacher, I have a question. Instead of using just one test, couldn't we use different text from the same topic for each group in the classroom, or no?
So, for example, in my case, I use just one text, okay, in order to the activity, because with one text help all, with one test one the whole group, okay. But if you want, it's possible. Yes, this is one of the modifications that you can do in this method. Something that I would like to say in order to answer to the question about the strategy, the speaking and listening. Yes, as Raul said, one of the purpose of dividing the text by section is that in each section they speak. Okay, so this is one of these method help us in order to that our students listen your classmates and speak among them. Okay, so as Raul mentioned, yes, they have had a time in order to prepare their answers. Yes, of course. So probably in some cases they started doing in Spanish, but with the time they started. And this is the idea of this method.
Yeah, I would like to, yeah, and I think the option of having one or multiple texts. I mean, it is possible. You can have, if you want to, for example, do reciprocal teaching to develop a topic or to introduce a theme as opposed to the reading. You can have the students work on different ones, and then you can integrate whatever they do in the groups and use it as the basis for a larger discussion or a larger presentation. So the possibility, I would say the main takeaways of the usual reciprocal teaching have to do, first of all, with, and as we kind of mentioned in the previous demo, and there is the previous video, the idea that reading silently is the key to this. That the way sometimes we read in groups, that we read aloud and people listen, that is not effective. That, as Kadir noticing his research, when you have the students really taking time to read silently, shorter segments, and then talk about it, lends itself to better comprehension than this traditional way of reading aloud when one person reads to four. And then no one has anything to talk about because nobody understood. Nobody had the time to read and think. Reading is something that, like for comprehension, sometimes you just need to read silently, and we need to recover the value of silent reading. And reciprocal teaching is an invitation for silent reading. Second, it's an important lesson, and again, that's why it's important to bring the cases of school teachers or teachers in public schools, teachers in rural schools. Small groups work. Small groups work. I think that I'm a huge advocate of small group work in class. But small group work doesn't mean just throw people in groups and see what. No. Small group works if there is a good plan. Small groups work if you have a very clear plan and students know exactly what they're supposed to do. I think about in this case, you're working virtually. If you know exactly what to do, it doesn't matter if you're in the same classroom or if you're working asynchronously from your home, and just, if you have good instructions, small group works because you know exactly what to do. Reciprocal teaching brings back the value of small groups, and especially small groups as, and I would like Kadir to talk about that for a little bit. The value of how much feedback you can give to one small group versus the little feedback you can give to a whole class.
Can you repeat again?
Yeah. So, like, because in your case, for example, how much feedback were you able to give when you had the students working in small groups versus the traditional way when we have to give feedback to the whole class?
Okay, so in this case, it's much better, it's easier. Okay, so because this one helps us as a teacher, obviously, because we can pass by group in order to give them feedback by groups. Okay, one by group. Okay, so in this activity, we must, so for example, we pass to have some students or some groups, because remember, this is a group reading activity in which all the students must read. All the students must work, okay? So remember the traditional way of reading in group, as Raul said before, or always said, one student read and the other listen to, okay? And this is not the idea of reading. The idea of reading that all of those read, all of those work, okay? As they work, as a song say, work together as one. Okay, this is a metal song. Okay, I don't want to sing it. Okay, so with the feedback, I think it's one of the of the advantages of this method. Okay, because probably while they are reading, okay, I am doing questions, I am solving, I am clarifying terms, okay, while they are doing this one, right? But obviously, at the end, we took all of those information, and with this all information, I can do a general feedback for them, right? So in my case, I did one by group, okay, one feedback per group. But at the end, I took all of this information and I did a general review of the activity. Okay, this is as I did. Okay, but there are many options to do it. Okay, if you want, you can do it in general, right? Keeping in mind that I have 5 groups. Okay, 5 small groups. Okay, you know that in a public school we are a lot of students. We have a lot of students. We are unfortunately maybe 30 students in each group. Okay, but imagining the urban schools, they are approximately 50 students, 60 students in a group. So imagine the chaos. I don't want to imagine that. For the reason I love my school. This is a big school, but with maybe a few students. Okay, so I don't know what to say more about that.
No, I think it's, and yeah, and I think that was the main point for the main takeaway for today. I wanted the students to see what this looks like when you take it to a class. Because I mean, sometimes we do demonstrations in original methods class, but I think it's also important for them to see how these reading comprehension approaches and techniques look like when you take them to a real classroom in a school. I mean, I'm not saying that our classes are real, but it's sometimes, I mean, doing things in a college level class is different from doing them in a school because of the students' level ranges, the characteristics. So sometimes it's important to ground this research in the reality that students are going to face in the classrooms. And on that, I wanna finish today's demo Friday. Again, expressing our gratitude to Kadir for the incredible research he's doing, the incredible work he's doing with his students, really helping them become better readers in general, because I mean, the work we do in the English class resonates in literacy efforts when you break into other classes. So Kadir, my gratitude, thank you for the great research you're doing. I think the students probably they learned a lot today from you. So I appreciate your presence with us this afternoon.
Okay, thank you, Raul, and you all. The mentioning for me was a pleasure. And you know that I am a busy person, to be honest. Okay, so I had to take a little time of my time in order to talk about something that I am doing in my school, and it is improving my students' perceptions. Okay, and I would like that you all maybe take some idea about this one that I am doing in my school in order to do it in your future schools, right? Or future universities, because you can apply this one in whatever you want. Okay, you must use your imagination in order to identify a problem, in order to adapt this method that has many advantages. Okay, but this one is up to you. Okay, if you want to change something, maybe you must waste or you must spend a little time of your life. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kadir, and for everybody. Thank you for the comments, and thank you for the participation. For folks watching this, I remind you this is going to be you're going to see it on YouTube very soon in the LSLP in session webinar series. And as always, we invite you to check out all the other videos, including incredible scholars and teachers from Colombia and around the world. So everybody, thank you again for being part of this. Everybody have a very good afternoon and an excellent weekend. And goodbye.